I think that's a reflection of, how the reactions are from, Twitter. It kind of reflects how our gaming community is. I feel like it's like we don't know what that looks like because there's so little of it, right? Like in other sports, you see trash talking all the time.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and as always, I'm joined by my friends and co-hosts. We've got Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair, and we are here to recap all of the Super Week action. Lots of stuff happening, lots of interesting happening, and of course, with NA, there's always going to be some kind of overblown drama, and this week, it was the non-handshake from Zven and Yeon after their game this past week, and it was kind of squashed early on, but I wanted to bring it up because there's always drama, there's always reactions to it. But if you guys didn't see it, basically the whole thing that happened was that on stage after the game, teams give their handshakes, and when it got to Zven and Yeon, Zven basically looked at him, said no thanks, kind of gave him a stare, and there was kind of like a big ooh, what's going on there? And then come to find out, there was some trash talking during the game where Yeon apparently said after a fight in all chat, your academy team is better, and then Zven responded back later, after they won, like go back to academy, and kind of led to this whole thing. But apparently Zven apologized, which I don't know why he did. I mean, I love the drama, but let me just get your thoughts on that, because I got to zone in on the drama because that's always the fun part. So what do you guys think about that little squabble?
I mean, I liked it. I liked how that a academy player was raising beef with like a very established person. It was fun, and like it makes sense, right? Yeon and Zen actually played against each other last split in academy, so like it makes sense. Or two splits ago in academy, so it makes sense why they were like there's a little bit of friction there, right? I don't think it was inappropriate how Zen replied. Like I think that was perfectly fine. He didn't throw hands or anything. He was just like, I don't want to handshake you. You just insulted my homies, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought it was cool. I wish the community don't flame people so hard. Like just check Twitter. If you think like it, I think most people don't care or think it's funny. And then if you check Twitter, of course there's going to be people outraged. So yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't think Zven needed to apologize, but I do think he should have shook his hand after things got said in game. You get out of game, get over it. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think it's all pretty. I don't know. You could tell people latched onto it really fast, and that just makes me think that our community is starved of any sort of interesting narratives or trash talk. Like it was super mild. Yeah, I mean, shake hand, don't shake hands, say it in chat, apologize after. Like it was so mild. I did think it's funny that Yeon, it didn't get as much traction, but he did respond to the tweet, and he was basically like, I don't give an F about your apology. So that was kind of cool, I guess.
Right.
But if I'm being real, it's like, we don't want to like become like the Wild Wild West where we're just throwing insults left and right and being a dick for no reason. But like all games in all sports are more interesting if people have beef with each other and people want to win for more than just winning, right? They want to win because they want to prove something, or they want to win because they don't like the other person. Like it's just something that we've missed in LCS. It's kind of something we're missing in LEC as well. I don't know about the other regions as much, but um, the fact that we all latched onto this so quickly means we're missing it. I will say that Zven went onto the dive and was talking about how he used to do a lot of trash talk, and he stopped because no matter what he did or what he said, he would just wake up to a million death threats on his Twitter and DMs, and it's like,
jeez,
if we want an entertaining industry and we want an entertaining show, like you guys gotta stop with the death threats. It's entertainment, guys. It's not real life. So people, if you do that, like stop. Like can we have fun, please? So I get why some pro players don't do it, but I wish we could live in a world where they could.
Yeah, I think too. I wonder if this goes into maybe the gaming culture as opposed to the difference in like sports culture, because I know in sports culture, I played basketball a lot when I was a kid. I played different sports, and like there was always trash talking. Like it was kind of common. Part of it would start off funny, kind of like, just kind of trying to get in their heads a little bit. And then it might turn a little serious, kind of like when you're wrestling with your brother or something like that. It starts off play fighting and then somebody hits a little too hard. Then it becomes like a little more serious. And then you start fighting. And then afterwards, you're like, okay, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of the norm, I think, in sports culture, but I don't know about like gaming culture is a little bit different because it is an esport, but at the same time it's not like a physical sport, and so there is that competitiveness, but not always a lot of opportunities to kind of vent out that competitive drive and whatever it is that might be there. But I'm along the same lines with you guys. Like it's not a big deal, like it really isn't. But again, I think that's a reflection of how the reactions are from Twitter. It kind of reflects how our gaming community is. I feel like it's like we don't know what that looks like because there's so little of it, right? Like in other sports, you see trash talking all the time. Unless actual hands are thrown, it's like whatever. It's like move on. But either way, it's fun. It's fun to see that, and I'm hoping that there is more. Like now when they play again, I guarantee you that matchup to me will be a little more interesting to watch because of this little spat. So for all intents and purposes, good job. Like you've gotten an interested fan here to see them play, even though I'm not a direct fan of the teams. But speaking of Cloud9, there is news that Diplex is probably headed out, or at least their academy mid laner Emenes is getting a trial to go into the starting LCS spot in the mid lane. And without getting too much into C9's play this week, because we'll definitely talk about that, what are your thoughts on that? Because Diplex to me has kind of had some good weeks, some okay weeks. I don't think he's been terrible. Apparently, the rumor is Emenes is crazy mechanically, really good, but I've also heard things that he's really toxic and not a great teammate. So let me get your thoughts on that whole news that, Diplex might be being replaced.
Yeah, so Diplex, he's been pretty good in team fights. Like he has like very respectable showings for someone who hasn't played at a tier 1 league. But his laning's been bad. Like he just on a winning team, he consistently is even or losing, right? And I think they want to try something while it's still they have a good record and they'll make it to playoffs and see if they can raise their ceiling a bit. And this guy has been on so many teams. He has never been on a team for based on League P. He's never been on a team for longer than 7 months consecutively. He's been kicked, not like he left. He's been removed from Korean orgs like Genji Academy, Kingzone main team, but he never played. He was removed from an Oceanic team, a Turkish team, EU team, and now he's on NA. He got removed from a Turkish team, but he's also been ranked 1 ladder, so on the Korean ladder. So there is a ceiling there. Apparently, he's probably one of the best mid laners mechanically out there. He's just so toxic that's why he keeps getting dropped. And the only thing that I've heard, and I haven't seen a clip or anything, but apparently he tells his teammates to go kill himself. Like it's not like basic toxicity. We're talking about like psychopath level, like closer
to his
that.
teammates.
To his teammates.
That's not trash talk anymore. That's just It's
not solo queue, guys. He's like in person, so I think it's a big risk, but I am interested, right? If C9 can tame him, kind of like how everyone was trying to tame Dardoch, then it will have a very high upside. But it could also be a shit show, which I'm also here for.
Personally, I don't give a damn how good you are. If you're a bad teammate, you have no place on a team. You're gonna pull down everyone on the team. You're gonna ruin the environment, and nothing's going to get done. Like sure, they're winning now, but what happens if they start losing? Everything collapses. We've seen it happen before. We don't need Cloud9 breaking point.
Yeah, it's controversial for sure. C9 does have a bit of a, I guess, legacy of turning around toxic players. Jensen's the most famous one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple of other ones too, but I'm curious to see them try it out. I think that they'll know he's very talented and he'll probably work for the team well, and when they're winning, they'll probably look better. I'm just wondering, yeah, C9's just got to try out the attitude when they do lose. How does Emenes react or whatever? Yeah, there's already a lot of personalities on C9, so I personally expect it to blow up. I don't think it's gonna work out. There are so many hotheads on the team already with Fudge and Zven. Blabber's also is a very talkative guy too. So yeah. But if you go on Twitter and everything like that, everybody's hyping him up. everybody is like talking about how he's just completely crapping on the Champions League. He's smurfing in Champions Queue. So I just hope he is not toxic and plays well. That would be great for LCS. That'd be really fun because Diplex, I actually think he played pretty all right. Honestly, he's been playing pretty all right. Yeah, I'll agree about his laning, and I'll agree sometimes he's also kind of underwhelming. He's not like a superstar mid laner,
Hmm.
but he was playing pretty all right, and he definitely could have grown into something interesting. So if C9 is saying they're replacing him because of this guy, that must mean he's like actually super legit.
Yeah.
Because C9 they could go for a championship this split, like they're up there right now. So, um, I am excited for either of them to do well or for it to fall apart. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right though. Like, if anyone's going to turn him around, then it's Cloud9, and so
Yeah.
that is the only thing that's kind of hedging this whole swap out. Like, if it was any other org, I'd have more question marks, but that does make it exciting because if it works out, then that's again another win for Cloud9 being able to have their systems, quote unquote, like kind of do the job, right? Like that's always been their selling point, and I believe them. I mean, they've had a long history of like being consistent, even when they do things or make decisions that don't make sense, even when they sub people out or swap roles, like things that make us as fans question, what the heck they're doing. They always seem to know what they're doing, and so I trust their decisions with that. But since we're talking about Cloud9, we can get a little deeper into them now because they were one of the teams that went 3-0. So let's talk about their matchups. They had pretty easy matchups. I thought the Team Liquid game would have been interesting, but they also won that. Their wins are interesting because they don't typically get ahead early on. Maybe it is some of the laning. In fact, they're, pretty behind at 15 as far as gold difference goes, but their mid to late game ratings really great. They seem to control dragons. They're number one in dragon control, so that seems to be a pretty strong area of contention for them. But what are your thoughts about them this past Super Week? Again, 3-0, and now they might be bringing in a new mid laner, so things might be even looking better for them.
They stomped Immortals and Dignitas as expected. The Liquid game, I actually think they should have lost. I think if Harry doesn't play as a 10th place Azir player in the league or 12th place or whatever rank he is on that character, I think they lose. I think that they had a pretty bad showing early on, and okay, them and there are other factors, but Harry was like the most obvious, and they actually could have lost to a pretty weak-looking Team Liquid. So to me, I think that is the reason that they
Mm-hmm.
subbed out Diplex, because otherwise, like, it's actually more risky than it looks. It's not like if Diplex gets subbed back in later that he's going to be 100%. So I think that they lost a little confidence in him from this match. Like he was fine. He didn't die or anything, but like he just doesn't have the pressure I think they want to have, and they don't want to ever risk losing to a currently 5th, 6th place contending team in playoffs, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's the canary in the coal mine, right? Like you win, go 3-0, and then you sub your mid laner who hasn't been inting. That's probably telling you that something in scrims is telling you that there is an upside somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the TL game was definitely interesting, but the thing I find most interesting is you're talking about that dragon stat. I mean, they always just have a winning bot lane. I mean, they always have good matchups for Berserker and Zven, and it really helps, especially when they're gonna have Blabber playing, you know, 3 games of Maokai this weekend. So
Yeah.
that does kind of help with the point and click and the zone control. So I mean, they went 3-0. They did play the 3 lowest rated teams in the league, which still feels weird to say TL's 8th place team. It's been
Oh yeah.
since what, 2016 since that's been it, since they haven't been
Mm.
like top 5. So
Yeah, it was a pretty over weekend for them. I think the Cloud9 TL game, yeah. I Berserker and Zven, I think they did lose. They did get killed 2v2, and then they did get ganked and die again. And then there's that really weird moment where Summit was on Scion. He was ulting into the dragon, and he kind of like hits Berserker, and Berserker doesn't press any of his abilities. He had like Gale Force, ulti, flash, and heal up, and he ended up dying. And I think someone else on C9 ended up dying in that area too, and they lost the dragon. That's what kind of started the snowball of Team Liquid looking like they should win the game. That was a very weird moment for me watching Berserker die with everything up. Just getting hit by a Sign ulti. So I wonder what was going on there. Maybe it was just a oopsies probably.
Yeah.
I don't know what is up with that, but that seemed weird. Um, I do get the feeling that um, Diplex, definitely against like Immortals and Dignitas, he looked like he could be a playmaker, but I think maybe against slightly better teams, he can maybe have a tendency to like choke up a little bit, like tense up a little bit, and he's not making plays. He's playing like a little too safe. So Emenes will bring that. I mean, I literally just watched a couple clips of him being on the Blanc and just running around and killing everybody and being like like a playmaking god. So I wonder if that's what they're looking for. Maybe they're looking into the future of the meta and be like, we need someone who's playmaking, and I could see that. I feel that from Cloud9. Like you have Blabber who will make plays. You have Zven who's only just starting to learn how to be good on engaged champions. And if Fudge is going to be on tank duty, I think, you do have a lot of engagers, but maybe you also need that extra someone, a little oomph to go roam bot, to go roam with your jungler, to have lane pressure, to make plays, besides just being a consistent DPS threat. So, yeah, I can kind of see it. Otherwise, I don't know. That game was just super weird. Team Liquid is I don't know. Piosik waiting 10 years for the Elise flank, and then never
Yeah.
showing up.
That was crazy.
Weird times, guys. Yeah.
You're right. Well, I will say that if we have Emenes come in, I'm not sure about his play style, but if him and Blabber can really coordinate and get some early aggression and like I said, they're not the greatest early game team, so that might be something that they can look to fix, especially if Emenes' laning is much better. That would be really interesting to see. The other 3-0 team is that we saw this past week was Evil Geniuses. Again, another team that is supposed to be good, quote unquote. They had two, like, they played Team Liquid and 100 Thieves, which are supposed to be like better teams. They won those games, and then they played Immortal, which is a team they should beat. But the thing that concerns me with EG again is they have great early game. In fact, they're still number one in that. Like they're really good at getting early advantages, early gold leads. But then their games, they just can't close them out. They have like really high game times. And the one I'm thinking of specifically was the one against 100 Thieves, where they should have ended that game like 30 minutes or less, but it ended up being drawn out so much. They almost lost. They did the right thing in that game and just, avoided the team fight altogether and just went straight down mid to end the game. But what are your thoughts on EG this past week? Again, 3-0. They won games that, were close, but I'm still kind of shaky on them. Just I feel like their mid and late game just looks shaky to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they had a 45-minute game against 100 Thieves and a almost 45-minute game against Liquid, and Liquid had Soul, right? Like,
Yep.
it is clear that like they're not firing on all cylinders. The good news is Jojo Pyon's less inty, relatively speaking. I consider picking Jason and A mid as inty, but otherwise they're playing a little better. And my concerns on FBI's late game have been alleviated a little bit, like in the sense that he's not like the problem per se, but they can't close. Like they just don't know how to finish. I do think FBI has been a boon for the early game, as you can see by the early stats. So I keep saying this every week, but he continues to impress. Like he's only had 2 deaths or less for almost every game except their 1 loss against FlyQuest. That's kind of insane. Like he's not an interdog on this team. So I think that they're going to do well if they go into a different meta where it's not, scale to late every game and, our jungle diff doesn't matter. So I think that Inspire will be happy once they fix comeback XP. I don't know if they will fix it by playoffs, but I hope they will.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what to think. I mean, they're winning their games, but they're not winning them as convincingly as I would expect them to for a 7-2 team.
Right.
It FBI's not dying, but at the same time he's playing Ultimate Bravery Jin, so I don't know what to think about this team still. I feel I just don't know what to say.
I think this team they're missing the impact shot calling factor of how to end the game or rotate or just do anything like clever or unique. I think they do have really strong early games because Inspired, still a really cracked jungler. JoJo's still really good at taking his pressure mid lane and bringing around the map. But, when you look at Sumday's champion pool, right, none of it is really like, let me get into a team fight and let me just like win or engage or do something. Like he played Fiora and in the against Team Liquid, and he was pretty irrelevant for most of the game. It wasn't until like way later on, after Summit was basically like full build for like 20 minutes straight. Like the guy was level 18 full build, and then another 20 minutes of game happened, and then finally Fiora like was able to catch up. Like they don't know how to use Someday on the side lanes to end the game, and he's not playing team fighting champions that can engage. And I feel like, yeah, EG has these single engaged champions. They have Sejuani or Maokai, and it's hard for them to end the game without like very obvious tools. Like Vulcan's not on engage either. JoJo's not on really hard engage either.
Yeah.
And so weaker teams always have this problem where if you don't have champions that have very clear engage tools, they can't end games. You see in other regions, a lot of teams don't have these very direct engage tools, and they can end games because you'll see FlyQuest and they will 2 minutes in ahead of time, they'll put a pink ward way deep into your jungle
Yeah.
and they'll TP flank you. Um, or they'll have really clever dives because they'll stack a wave on the other side of the map, stuff like this. But EG hasn't been able to do that, right? They get an early lead and then their creativity falls apart and they don't have very simple tools. So they just sit around. They push waves, they shove waves back and forth, they show up for dragons and baron fights, and they are playing against comps that can sometimes outscale them, so it gets really sketchy. And if we're talking about EG versus 100 Thieves, 100 Thieves just won. They should have, okay, EG should have won that game, but then 20 minutes went by
Yeah.
in the late game. 100 Thieves should have won that
Should've-
game.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They so should have won that game,
Uh-huh.
but they went to Baron and they gave up their Nexus.
Yeah.
So like that one to start off the Super Week really felt like that was a defining time for 100 Thieves. I feel like they thought they should have won that game too, and they
Mhm.
just went 0-3. And then EG was like, all right, I guess we win. This
Yeah.
league is too easy for us. So I hope EG they get a little smarter, they get a little more clever. If we want them to be our top team, if we want them to represent us at MSI, right? This is like 5 full-on straight veterans. So, yeah, think of better ways to end the game. FlyQuest has already shown how to do it. Other reasons are showing how to do it. Let's see some creativity from them.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and that's the silver lining, is that as kind of shaky as their game looks, they're still at the top of the league, right? And you're right. Like, I mean, I'll give them credit because they should have lost that 100 Thieves game after a certain point. And they did the one thing that I think, they needed to do to win, which was avoid team fights, because they were going to lose every team fight. And 100 Thieves, which we'll lay into them later, but, I wanted to spotlight at least EG was smart enough to be like, oh, they're all going here. We're just not going to go there. And we're just going to go end the game, because honestly, I think that would have been the only way to win at that point where, the game was at that state. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think they just need to shore up that mid to late game. I've been saying it for a couple of weeks. I think we've all been saying that. But again, they're still able to tread water. Still stable, be able to stay at the top of the league, which is good, because hopefully when it does click, then they'll really be able to pile onto their record, and that might help in playoff standings or whatever it is that will be advantageous for them. But here's the surprising 3-0 team, Golden Guardians. I mean, maybe not so surprising, because we have been kind of riding that train and saying that they've been, looking good. And, now that their schedule has kind of eased up a little bit because they were just playing really hard teams, they're on a roll. They went 3-0. Stixxay seems to be catching new life. Gori is playing well. River's playing well. What are your thoughts on Golden Guardians in this 3-0 weekend? Or week, not weekend. I always say weekend because I'm still used to it.
Yeah, me
Rip.
too,
So yeah, Stixxay playing well. I think he didn't die. Like,
yeah, he didn't die 5 games in a row.
yeah, that's not just playing well. That's like incredible. That's like noteworthy, right? Like the only time I remember someone like not dying for that long in a row was like Meteos in like season 3. Like, obviously Meteos' streak was longer and he had like 1 or 2 deaths, but he was like 70 KD or some shit at some point. Yeah, Stixxay is playing really well. He's on a team that can allow him to not have to sacrifice himself. Is he like playing like a superstar in the games? I mean, it's hard to tell. They've just kind of won all their games. And I mean, this week was Dignitas, TSM, and then 100 Thieves, which is supposed to be hard, but this is like a boomed 100 Thieves. So
Yep.
hard for me to say. I actually think the more interesting topic is Gori number 1 or 2 in the mid lanes in the league right now. If you're just talking about raw performance, right? He came in. He's only been here for 4 weeks. It's not like he even scrimmed during the offseason the whole time, right? He came in mid-season, gelled with the team. Yeah, they had a bad first week, but like he literally just got off the plane a couple days before, and now they're just 5-0. Of course, it's against mid to lower teams, but he's played well. Honestly, there is an argument. He's at least more consistent than Vikla in my eye test. Because Vikla is very good, but like, oh my gosh, sometimes I'm like, dude, this guy is like, this guy is subbing in mid lane. He's just on a better team.
Yeah.
So I think that's exciting. I think the only thing holding back this team when they do the next round robin is again, Licorice isn't inting, but that's because he's in his bad teams. I think his problem is he's not the type of top laner like Solo where he could be stable against good teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gori is really good. He's definitely up there for mid laners, but we have to see him against some of the top rated teams. I mean, he's definitely had some good performances. I mean, he did very well against Bjergsen, but again, it is boomed 100 Thieves. So let's see him against Cloud9, EG, FlyQuest, like some of the better teams. Because if obviously like yeah, you can do well in the 1v1, but you do have to factor in the jungle. There's a reason that the proximity is a pretty notable stat, right? Um, as for Stixxay, I don't know what happened, but someone lit a fire under his ass. And he's just going
Yeah.
off. I mean, I'm happy to see it because he's been very off and on, and I think it was last year where they brought him in. He was the only veteran on a team of 4 rookies, and he's supposed to be there to kind of bring them up, and then he gets interviewed and said, "Oh yeah, we're just a bunch of friends." Well, then what's the point of you being a veteran? What's you of being the only veteran on the team? And now it feels like he's kind of more into that role almost. Though I mean, obviously Licorice is not a rookie either, or River.
Yeah, it's Stixxay, I think. I mean, he has been playing obviously better. I really do have to attribute his success and the team's success. They seem to have like a really strong jungle, mid, and support like trio, and I think like they are setting up and doing all the plays. They have like it's at least 2 to 3 playmakers that champions that they pick on those 3 roles, and you can tell that they are rotating around like together, like especially jungle mid for sure, but Huhi is very regularly involved, and Stixxay is just in the right place at the right time, and I really feel like it's support diff. I mean, I think Stixxay is still solid, but he hasn't actually done anything impressive. Weirdly enough, I think you kind of said that too, Kevin, where it's like he's got this great score and he's doing well, but he's never been in a situation where like he has to sweat really. Like everything is just fine. Everything is just cruising. And I really do attribute that to just shot calling. I know who he's a big shot caller. I'm not sure about River and Gori what they say in game, but what you can tell is that the way they move their champions, they are directing everything. They're doing all the stuff, and it makes Stixxay's life really easy. And I think that he was said in an interview with Travis that he lost a lot of faith in himself and lost a lot of faith in whatever team he was playing. So, you put some faith back in, you put some stability, then yeah, he's an MSI finalist. He won LCS. He can have hands back, so it's pretty cool to see. Um, Licorice, I don't know what to feel about this guy. Honestly, his Renekton looked pretty good, but it never felt like he was even relevant in any of the games, anyways. Like his Renekton looked good because he would kind of get caught out and then get a big ass Gore Drinker like Q heal. And then, but I don't know. I didn't feel like he did anything, especially the Lee Sin top game. Oh my god, was he irrelevant? He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I think he got 1 kick the whole game. So, this team is still kind of funny to me. I will say that like Gori, River, Huhi, that's like a winning trio. That's like a potentially LCS winning trio right there. Like they seem really solid, really smart, really on the same page, really vibing. Um, so if Gordon Guardians, if they do something this split, I think that'd be really cool. If they don't do anything that split, I think they know who they can keep and who they can get rid of.
Yeah.
So good for them. But yeah, we'll have to see how they hold up with some patch changes and when they play against better teams, blah blah blah. Because this is just still all new for us, right? Golden Guardians hasn't been a good team, I guess, since Who He was back there, right?
Sure.
When they
Yeah.
stole the 100 Thieves roster. So we will have to see. But hey, Who He's a superstar, right? I'm excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it is kind of cool to see, both him and FBI, splitting up, but also doing well in their respective teams. Like sometimes it just is a change up, and maybe it is the reuniting of Stixxay and Huhi, that is igniting this bot lane. But it is going to be interesting to see because when we go in the second round robin, they will have to play these tougher teams again, and so will they be? Can they break that that kind of barrier into the top? I think we kind of mentioned CLG as like the gatekeeper. So like I said, I just still don't know at this point, but I like the signs that we're seeing, and I agreed with everything you said as far as their kind of strong foundation and mid jungle and support. Let's move on to the 2-1 teams, and we'll start with the team that I thought was going to be 3-0 and still go undefeated. But FlyQuest finally takes their first loss, and of all the teams, it's against TSM. I mean, definitely didn't expect it. Although I did have my like kind of reservations when Vikla was on Jace. I said, is this going to be one of those games, man, where we're going to see an NA Jace just lose the game for them? And they ended up losing that one. But what are your thoughts on FlyQuest overall? They did get their first loss, but obviously not a big deal. They still won the other two games. Not a tough schedule, but again, they're still firing on all cylinders. They just kind of oopsied on that one. But what are your thoughts on FlyQuest?
My thoughts on FlyQuest were that they got boomed not by necessarily Maple. If you look on the scoreboard or Neo, they actually got boomed by Solo this game. Like that
Mm-hmm.
guy, that guy. I'm only quarter memeing. Like that guy was like 052 or something.
He was.
He was like getting absolutely camped and destroyed, and the man's mental was unbreakable. He went violent. He took a turn. He was just like, "Come at me. I do not give a crap. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
will do something." He wasn't actually 052, but he was basically just running it in terms
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
pushing lanes, and his team was playing really well around him. So that was like a great sign for TSM. Like I was like, "Holy moly!" They're like doing so well, and like Winsome was just getting caught out. I think one of the biggest flaws is like they have a Scion. They even have like a sort of AP, sort of tank Maokai. Why is Thresh in the front? Like maybe somebody
Yeah.
else mentioned this on the broadcast, but I was watching muted, and I was just like, why is Thresh in the front and not like lanterning out people so that they can cycle health bars? They were just playing so odd. This was a really bad game from Winsome. Prince could not show up, but like honestly, when you're playing against Vi, Rakan, and
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Cho'Gath looking to one shot you, like there's nothing you can do as Jace.
Yeah.
And Jace was just such a terrible pick. You like look around and you're just like, all right, we have our AD carry, we have two tanks. Who should our mid laner be? Another AD's damage source. And I'm just like, Solo has the easiest itemization route in his goddamn life. So Solo went from like 0-5 or 1-4 or whatever to 5-5-9. Like
Yeah.
he did so well. And I'm really impressed by that because that is the point of top laners. And it feels like NA is so bad at like playing for the win. They're good at playing for like their KDA and playing safe and calculated instead of like more risk taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest question mark about this game is why are we picking Thresh? Like there's just so many better picks in my opinion. Like Lulu's up, Karma's up, Renata's up. I mean, Renata's kind of fallen out of favor anyways, but I just don't understand what Thresh does in this game. Like he's not likely going to cancel Rakan, and that's pretty much all. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, is he gonna lantern you away from Vi?
Yeah,
Mm.
I
actually
just
there is a mechanic that I have heard about. It's very hard to execute, but I've seen it in LCK where if you get violted and you click Thresh Lantern while you're violted, you click nothing else, you'll immediately take it after the violent is finished. Maybe that's why they're doing it. I don't know, but I know they do it in LCK specifically.
yeah. I mean, I know that that's an interaction, but I mean,
Yeah,
look at everything else you're playing against. You're getting Vi ulted, and then you're getting Rakan ulted, Varus ulted, Cho'Gath knocked up, Talia knocked back. Like,
yeah,
if you get clicked, you die. There's like unless you can flash Gale Force away, or your Thresh is already preemptively two screens behind you with Lantern, you're gone. I don't like the pick. I think you just should be picking something to keep you alive so that you can instantly QSS flash out or something. I just don't think Thresh has a place in this comp.
Yeah, I think it's fair because that one interaction, right? You said it right. It only works if you only get violted, and then the other stuff doesn't get thrown at you at the same time. So they probably tunneled on the interaction, or Winsome doesn't want to be replaced by Ayla. It's like, let me show you my Thresh. I don't know. There's something
Yeah.
there because yeah, I gotta say Winsome's Thresh was not it. Even if the pick didn't really make sense, I feel like you saw other Threshes this weekend. Cordia J, he actually looked like a human being on Thresh earlier, right? I'm sure if Ayla was playing Thresh instead of Winsome, he would have looked much better. Um, but yeah, it's still hard for me to see why the Thresh was in this game. It's also hard for me to understand why Jinx is in the game.
Hmm.
Um, I because it doesn't seem like is all that great here because it's like she's very immobile. That's true. A lot of ADCs are immobile though, so maybe it's still fine to pick. But it's also like she takes so long to get online, and I feel like Varus and like having a Vi and a Talia, there's just so much pressure in the early stages before Jinx is even like relevant at all. And then because there's so much engage and CC, Prince can't afford to go Kraken, and then there's this giant Cho'Gath that he has to deal with, and then there's a Vi that's building basically full tank, so he doesn't get to go Kraken. He has to go Gale Force, and he decides to go Gale Force Runons too. So this Jinx was doing no damage for so long in the game, and you saw it with Doublelift too on 100 Thieves. He even went to more damage oriented build, but he was still doing no damage for so long. So Jinx, I'm not sure is good in the meta right now because it just takes so long for her to be relevant. Yeah, Alistair shaking head no. Yeah, so I don't agree with that. I also don't like the Jace because yeah, it's full AD comp. I do think it's funny that even though it's basically a full AD comp from FlyQuest, Solo still built Abyssal Mask, a
Yeah, he
purely
did.
AP MR resistant item. So super random. I don't know what so the itemization was just all over the place, everywhere. No real explanation. Um, yeah, the stars for me though were Boogie and Maple. I think that they had the really no bread no hands comp where Boogie ults you and then you get flicked by Talia. They did
Yeah.
it over and over and
Uh,
over again, and everybody was falling for it, right? Spica also had a really bad game. Like I don't think he was playing poorly, but it was like just like a few moments that were really bad, and it was just getting caught out. Like Spica was playing fine, except he would just get cut out in a couple of instances, and then all of FlyQuest would fall apart. And so you know, I wonder, like, is that the formula to beat FlyQuest? Because they had a pretty close game against CLG too,
Yeah.
and FlyQuest is maybe they're just a Spica team, right? If their
Mm.
jungler falls apart, because he's gotten first, but I think besides this game, he's gotten like first blood in almost every game, and he's gotten ahead and gotten the first ganks off in almost every game. If you put Spica behind, if you annoy him or frustrate him, is that what makes FlyQuest fall apart? Because I gotta say, the magic kind of fell apart for me for this team. They did look a lot more vulnerable this Super Week. After they lost to TSM, they genuinely were losing against CLG. It wasn't until Palfox threw his body in there and threw the game that FlyQuest actually won. So um, yeah, I mean, to be fair, like Vikla the next day after having a bad Jace game, he was insane on the Yeon. That's enemy team
Yeah.
Korean Yeon right there. That guy was so crazy on that champion. Um, but yeah, I wonder, right? Like, is FlyQuest, were they just tired? Were they just underestimating the bottom tier teams that they had to play? Um, we'll see what this team looks like moving
Yeah.
forward after this loss.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried. Again, I think also Prince is super good. I feel like he's even in the games that, like this one where he lost, like he didn't even seem that bad to me. So like I think that they'll still be okay, but you do raise up an interesting point about Spica because it does seem like all of the wins have kind of been centered around his play.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
lately,
Think
it does
so.
kind of look like there's been a little bit of weakness in that that gameplay, and it's a little bit shaky. So yeah, you're right. I think we could see something different in the second
I
half.
I also want to comment one last thing. This is our first place team, so
Yeah,
talk about it a little bit more. Prince's champion pool. I think it's a little bit funny. So Doublift plays Zyra Khan, and then against Prince, and then Prince, the next week decides
Yeah,
to play Zyra. I
that's
thought that
true.
was like, oh, okay, is that all right? Interesting. And then Doublelift, he plays Jinx, and
That's true.
on day one of Super Week, and then Prince decides to play Prince in the second day, the next day
Yeah.
after. I'm like, is Prince trying to play everything Doublelift plays and just say I can do it better? Like, it really feels like it's a little bit of an ego thing. Like, I
I
thought it
didn't
was
even notice
funny.
that. That's
I noticed
hilarious.
that instantly. As
Yeah.
soon as he locks in Jinx, I'm like, what is this? Why do we get 2 Jinxes in a row? So just a little bit of tinfoil hat theory. I think it's kind of funny. And then it was interesting. He picked Aphelios, and then they
Yeah.
went Aphelios Tom Kench. I don't know what's up with that. Is that a specific thing into Zeri Annie? It's so random that he's just
Yeah.
picking Aphelios. Do you have any comments, Alistair, on the
I
ADC
think the
picks?
to me the Aphelios pick and the Jinx pick kind of make me think that this was kind of an experimental week for FlyQuest
Yeah.
because
Okay.
neither of those champions are very good right now. They're both pretty bad. Um, and it's like going back to the Jinx pick real quick. Like I don't think Jinx would be terrible if they actually had an enchanter to supplement her. But if they're gonna pick Thresh, they should have just picked either Tristana or they should have picked Seraphine AD carry
Mm-hmm.
because
Prince on Seraphine. Oh,
I
yeah,
mean
what
the
a dream.
champion's broken, but I think those were the two best picks. I don't think Jinx was terrible, especially with all of the bans that were dropped on AD carry in the draft. But
hmm
I don't think she's good without an enchanter at the moment. I think she's very bad because not being able to build an attack speed item second because she would really abuse Kraken Slayer Phantom Dancer
hmm
in a lot of games. Just going even if you go Gale Force into Infinity Edge, it feels really bad because you either need to go Alacrity and then you have no lifesteal, and that way you can supplement your attack speed, or you can go Bloodline and not have attack speed, or you can go Bloodline and a Phantom Dancer item, and then you're 3,400 gold behind on your Infinity Edge compared to the enemy ADC. So it's if you don't have an Enchanter, Jinx just does not feel playable in my opinion.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I do think we should be seeing more Tristana. Tristana, I don't know if you guys watched any of the LEC stuff, but Caps was playing Tristana a lot, specifically into Vi, because what you can do is you can buffer your W and completely negate Vi ulti. And unfortunately, I think I will randomly segue us to 100 Thieves. Bjergsen play Tristana
Mhm.
into Vi. Maybe I'm sure he has to know that interaction. He couldn't get it off a single time. He got Vi ulted over
Yeah.
and over again. Never buffered his W.
Old
And
man
then when you
hands.
go over to LHC and you see Caps do it consistently every single Vi ulti, you gotta be like, "Ooh, that
Uh,
hurts, Frene. It hurts."
Yeah. Well, since we're in 100 Thieves now, let's go ahead and talk about them. I mean, this is again one of the surprises to me. Them going 0 and 3 was if you're a 100 Thieves fan, that's not a good sign. They played EG, they played CLG, and they played Golden Guardians. Okay, EG I can probably understand, but that loss was just really terrible. Maybe that boomed them, and they lost to CLG and
Yeah.
Golden Guardians after that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let's talk about them a little bit. I mean, my thoughts, just real quick, before I pass it off, is that I think they need to just give closer Lee Sin and roll the dice, man. Like, let that guy just do something. Like, it just feels like they don't have. It might be a Bjergsen thing again. Maybe they're just waiting to scale, and hopefully they play those team fights okay, right, with him and Double Lift. But I think you need to let closer carry. I don't think this meta just suits him that well. Like with all these, Sejuani's, and his Vi does not look good. And then, Maokai. I want to see him on something where he just can make plays, and we've seen it before where Lee Sin wasn't really meta, but he still pulled it out and was able to get wins. Like I want to see them do something like that because in my opinion, I think instead of them trying to fit the meta, like I would rather them just try to break it with the personnel that they have because they need a carry. They need somebody to like just make the plays for them. Bjergsen and Double Lift aren't it right now. Buzio and Tenacity, no, that's not it. Like it's closer. It's his team. Like closer, you need to take the reins, give me my champs, let me make plays. and I'll get y'all ahead or whatever it is that he needs to do. But I just don't like the way they're playing, where it just seems like, let me just roll over. Like there was one fight against EG where it was on Rift Herald. I literally thought they could have just finished it and gotten out, but they literally just walked away
Yeah.
and just didn't
I'm
fight,
so
didn't do
scared.
anything. They
Yeah.
just let EG have it. And I'm like, okay, is this how we're playing? Like, is this like, it just seems like they roll over and like, we'll just scale. And I'm like, that sounds like a Bjergsen mentality. Again, like we've talked about Bjergsen maybe being the problem. And I don't know if I like that. Like, I don't let Closer become a TSM jungler. Let him be him, and then you guys play around him. So those are my thoughts on 100 Thieves, but I'll let you guys have at it.
Yeah, these were the problems when they made this roster. We're like, why would they put these people around Closer? And like, I think the biggest flaw to this team is not even Bjergsen. Well, it is Bjergsen, but let me emphasize, they didn't put a carry, like a major carry threat on top either. So like, in my mind right now, Double is the only one who has like any chance of winning a game for them, and so it's
Yeah.
really easy to shut them down, especially if you put them on Jinx. Like that Jinx game against EG, they actually had a chance because they got to that point, but they should never have gotten there, right? And in my mind, their other two games weren't close. Like there was like, there was like a 30-ish minute game, but like they just had no chance. Like this is me probably being a fan to some extent, but like I think they had worse losses than TL's 3 losses. Like they're all 0-3, but man, this was depressing, man. Double F looked like he was just on a team with no one else. Like he was auto-filled in like low elo. I think Bjerg's scorelines weren't all bad per se, but they were very terrible showings. Like this man's he's not playing the characters that he's not playing the right meta or the characters that fill his like strengths. His like Tristana game was like the most extreme, just like he was just into. He was just going in. I was like, you went to Reddit, you went to Twitter, didn't you? Because what the hell was that? You did not need to do half of the things. Like I don't think his early game was terrible, but oh my god. And then Closer, he's just praying for the patch to change. Please, for the love of God.
Yeah.
I think the thing I'll leave off on, and I think this will be touched on later in a lot of episodes, is like the meta's not that strict. Like you see these people playing like friggin' like Callista bot lane. Like there's so much shit you can pick elsewhere. So stop picking like Vi if you're not a Vi player. Stop picking like whatever like default. They're just copying the meta from other regions and it pisses me off, especially when they're losing. If you can make it work, I have no complaints. But when you're looking bad and losing, like just do something else.
Yep.
Personally, I think it's a Bjergsen problem. He's consistently up CS, but he's almost always down KP every game.
You're
It's really hard to watch because it feels like, I mean, he's just not there for his team. He's like, oh, it's okay. I get 3 items, we carry. But at the same time, it's like the enemy mid is roaming, getting triple kills bot lane. He's like, it's okay, guys. I got 2 plates mid.
Yep.
I'm up 20 CS. We win the game. It feels like it's the same Bjergsen. He's not adapting to the meta that was. He's still playing on like 2017 patch.
Yeah.
The game's changed. The game's sped up. He can't play the way he played when he was the best player. And like I said last year, like I just feel like I've been saying for a while. I think he is the problem on the teams he's been on for the last few years.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. It's also like when I see him not be able to do the Tristana buffer on the Vi, and that's like almost the biggest reason you pick that champion in that situation. I just also think he doesn't have the hands too, unfortunately. That doesn't have the hands. Yeah, it's not that hard.
It's really
like
not that hard.
it's just a timing thing that you can get down every time, right? And so like they picked double tank top. They picked Ornn Maokai and then went double ADC. Like, you're just on a mid, one of the most broken champions on the patch. Like, oh my god, he had to carry, right? He had to carry. Also, your Lucian went Gale Force, Rapid Fire into a bunch of tanks as well, so he's not carrying, right? Like, it's very painful to watch. I do think also, like, I gotta say, like, even though Closer, it's like not his meta, right? And he's not on his champions, blah blah blah. Dude, he is so bad at engaging. Oh my god. He is so bad at being okay. To be fair, look, the meta that we see in LCS is just single or double engage comps, right? Literally, it's just jungle or just top lane or just jungle and just support. And like I get it. It's never been Closer's forte to be the engager. He wants to be the playmaker, but playmaker as in he's doing damage and he's like killing people, other people setting up. That's when 100 Thieves won LCS, was when closer was playing Viego, Lee Sin, Jin Zhao, and other people had CC and were setting him up. Um, I personally, if like we want 100 Thieves to like put a band-aid on this, like literally just put Bjergsen on Zillion and Syndra and
Yep.
just have him be CC with Syndra, and it's very easy to press R on people as Syndra and just speed people up with Zillion and
Yeah.
revive them and bomb them. Like he can't play these damage late game carries because he doesn't actually get damage off. I also think like Buzio is they might need to just throw him in on Gage. I know like
Yeah.
support enchanters is nice and all for double if, but they need some ways, some easy, simple, straightforward ways to start things off because they have defaulted in the super weekend to do nothing and lose. That's just their game plan. And pick scaling. So yeah, I agree. I also think tenacity, right? He has he has had moments on carry champions, but he's never looked great. His laning has been okay to like whatever, and his late game threat on those champions has been pretty poor. And then you put him on tanks. I remember the casters were saying that tenacity Ornn is kind of a meme because like he just picks it when they need to win and stuff. And you know what? He got no good engages off. He didn't get any good ultis off. There's no coordination between him and the rest of the team to utilize this Ornn effectively. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they need a better coaching. I don't know what's up with them, but yeah, it feels like they're a very uninspired team. They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So oh well,
That's the frustrating
boomers.
part. Yeah, it
Yeah,
just looks like what they're not even doing anything. It's like, why
yeah,
am I even watching this game? Look, here's my
so boring.
strategy. I think
Yeah.
you're right with the Bjergsen going Zillion, or just have him go Seraphine, right? And then let Buzio pick and engage support, and closer pick, someone either engage or carry. And
Just pick Lee
let
Sin,
Bjergsen,
bro. I don't care.
yeah, exactly.
I
Pick
just don't
Lee
care
Sin.
anymore.
Just let him go. Yeah, man.
Well, his Jarvan is.
Yeah.
I don't want him to see his Jarvan anymore.
That
Never
wasn't
again.
great.
His Jarvan was so. That champ is so good right now, guys. Well, it's not
Yeah.
that good in the meta. The champ in a vacuum, win rate rise in solo queue, very strong, very very good. But all right, we're gonna go on a little Jarvan rant really really quick. He actually sucks into the pro meta. The Vi, Sejuani, Maokai all kind of shit on him, both conceptually and just directly in interactions. All of their CC is really easy to use, and it all interrupts Jarvan combos. And also, it's a very low econ jungle meta, and Sejuani, like J4 can be low econ. Sejuani, Maokai, and Vi are just way better at low econ. Like J4 is still great at low econ, but that's how much better the other champions are at low econ. So it's kind of rough for J4. I actually don't think in pro play there's a reason to pick him. But if you're good at the champion, you can still pick him and do stuff. But oh
Yeah.
my god, Pioshik and Closer, the J4 plays we saw, they were like really bad. They were like really really bad.
Yeah.
But
I've got the answer.
yeah.
Hecarim Seraphine and Hecarim Zillion.
Okay, yeah. Hecarim, I'm
Yeah.
down.
Send it.
Hecarim is
Play
super brain
Kindred.
dead.
I just
I'd be down for
Closer
Kindred
has
too.
to carry, and Bjergsen needs to be on something where he's actually going to play the game with his team rather than just sit mid and farm.
Yeah,
This
I'd be down
this
for
is
Talia still too. Yeah,
this
mid.
is just
Talia mid.
this is just a question of ego though, because Bjergsen would. There's no way he's just gonna be like, okay, I'll just play the supportive champs. I think in his mind, he still wants to be the carry. He still wants to be the person that it's all resting on his shoulders. And unfortunately, I don't think he's the guy that will just play the supportive role. Which would make sense because that's how he plays anyways at this point. He's not playing, like a carry with a carry mentality. So
He is too obsessed with his wave state. That's Bjergsen.
Yeah.
Like it's just
You're
he's
right.
just so obsessed with his wave state, so obsessed with being within XP, like
Mhm.
being up XP, being up in tempo and weight. Like, oh my god, just sack a couple waves, bro, and get your jungler ahead because you ain't carrying shit. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
oh
Yeah.
man, it's so
All right.
and you
Well,
can't play
let's
melee mids either. It's so rough, bro. It's so
let's
rough.
let's jump off this Bjergsen hate train. I feel bad for my boy. But it's
Yeah, it's a little
happening.
rough.
It sucks, man. So yeah, closer Bjergsen. They need to swap roles where closer becomes a carry. Fun fact is that closer had 0 kills this entire past 3 games. He had 0 kills, not good. But
no.
let's move on from that hurt train and let's go to maybe a little more positive spin at CLG, because they were 2-1. They had a pretty not rough schedule, but it wasn't an easy schedule by any means. And this is again a team that still confuses me because I don't know what CLG is going to show up. You know, one week they're losing to easy teams, the next week they're winning against teams that, you know, you think would give them a run for their money, but they beat Team Liquid, they beat 100 Thieves, and they were pretty close against FlyQuest. So
yeah, they were. Yeah.
they were looking pretty good. And, you know, this week especially, they had, you know, they were top 3. In fact, they were second in like early game rating. So they were playing really well early game. They were, you know, snowballing leads and closing out games. So what are your thoughts on CLG in this past week? And do you think this is actually going to continue? Because I'm not putting my bets quite yet on them with this week's results.
My thoughts on CLG. I mean, their most impressive win was obviously the one versus 100 Thieves. They like curb stomped them. It was 15-2, guys. Like,
yeah.
This was a more interesting week for them because their opponents were 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, and FlyQuest, right? So 2 of the perennial like should be really good teams, and then FlyQuest, which is recently the number 1. And so them going 2-1 is really impressive. I think that once again, I've been impressed that this team still doesn't have anyone I would put in the top 3 in their role, but they continue to push past and like beat teams that have way better players. So that is very impressive. I'm worried that second round robin they'll like run out of steam, but like I mean I have no reason to worry yet in the sense that like they've just done well. So I'll give them credit. I don't think anyone has stuck out to me specifically as a superstar that like has like been the difference in these games. And so I'm worried that once, you know, the pressure is on, no one's going to step up per se. But for now, I mean, smooth sailing. So good for them. Doko had 2 Aurelia games that he won on. That's very unusual in the NA, especially for a top laner. So we know he plays Aurelia. It's just funny. It's interesting that he's actually made it work.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree. I think I think he's really performing. I definitely think he's up there in support right now for sure. I mean, especially like those Annie games. I mean, to be fair, the champ's extremely broken and not
Oh, yeah.
balanced. But I mean, he was playing it well, especially for a champion that no one's played support. I mean, again, the champ's not hard, but still, just being able to like know what's going on and know the limits of your champion, play it like that. I mean, good on him. I definitely think he's not getting the credit he deserves personally.
But do you think he's better than FlyQuest's support, Winsome, or Zven, or Vulcan this season? Because I would say top 3, right?
I'd be like
I was just saying he was up there. I wasn't saying necessarily top 3. I do think he's
there, but not
underrated
top
for
3, then
sure,
what
and
is
I
he,
do think
4th?
he can trade blows with some of them.
Okay.
yeah.
I'll say that. I won't say he's top 3, but I think he's a solid 4th.
Okay.
Maybe 3rd, depending on how Winsome's doing that day.
But that's your best player, right? That's the problem.
Yeah,
I
That's
mean,
true.
okay, well, you guys are all like talking about CLG wrong. It's not about like the best player or the wrong player. It's how much is the community believing in them. That is the most accurate depiction of their power level. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you're
That's
all right.
accurate. Power of friendship.
True.
So last week, or I think they were playing against a bunch of bottom tier teams. They're gonna be fine,
Yeah.
and they just looked terrible. They got shit on completely, and it was so bad.
You're right.
This week, nobody believed in them. Right, they were looking so bad last week, and and then they just started winning and doing great stuff. But seriously, it's gotten so consistent year after year, and then this roster in particular, last year, right, and this year, like you just can't believe in them. So I'm done. I'm just gonna call them a bad team, and then I'm not gonna say anything else about it because that's the only way they can win. They're just a bad team, and we'll see what happens. No belief, no thoughts, nothing. That's all I got.
I agree with Mitchell. They won their first 2 matches during the week. We got hyped, and then they lost their 3rd.
Yeah, they lost their third.
It happened.
Dude, no, it's not just they lost their 3rd. It's that they started doing well against FlyQuest, and we all thought that they could win. And then Palafox said, "No, we cannot win. I'm sending myself in on a one-way mission." Jesus Christ. I just gotta talk about the CLGTL game. Like, oh my god, Pioshik lost his freaking marbles. I think he's like has PTSD from getting so many Barons stolen from him. But Contracts, he was just sitting in the jungle, like, and he just yoinks the Baron, and Pioshik loses his mind. He just keeps running at them with Graves. They clearly escaped. Half of Team Liquid is walking away, and he's like, I'm dashing in. I'm flashing in. Oh, I got my dash up again. I'm dashing in. I don't care. And then Poom, if we're being fair, he does kind of make a super play. 3v5. He flashes forward to get a rend, and then gets a reset and gets another rend off, and he kills them all. That was pretty sick. I also do think it's funny that Dokla, he got this like really hype Aurelia play against Team Liquid, but if you look at what he did, all he did was get hooked. Summit missed his ulti on him, and then you just get one key reset and just auto everybody to death. I was like, that is the most low elo Aurelia play, but hey, it works, and then they won the game off of it. So I don't know, just like I guess we could transition to Team Liquid now. Like they are just like the most comedically depressing team, I think. They have so many advantages that just they just throw out so fast, so quick in this such dramatic, like amazing fashion. Like Team Liquid is kind of the most interesting team to be. Like they're so hilarious.
I don't know. They should just gone budget roster instead of getting another like 2 world champions this
But
year.
it's so much funnier this way, though.
It
It's
is.
so like Pioshik loses his mind when it gets past 25 minutes. He plays pretty okay. He does some decent stuff, right? He's got some smart stuff, and then he just runs it down. He just dashes in his graves, and then on J4, he just flash ultis 4 people for fun and dies. It's I don't know what's going on with him. He's the most insane player. Oh, I love
Summit
it.
had
I
the
gotta-
right angle too. It was terrible.
I gotta ask you guys because you guys play more Graves than I do.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this a real build?
Yeah,
Oh,
Is that like
oh,
Gore
not the
Drinker build?
Zeal, not the Zeal.
not the
Like,
Zeal.
okay, Gore Drinker Black Cleaver. Yeah, I
That's
see
fine.
that. That one
That's
makes
fine.
sense.
That
but
happens all the time.
Not going boots and then building Phantom Dancer.
No, that's
That
not it.
seems.
That's not it.
He forgot. He definitely forgot. Because the way he was chasing felt like he thought he had tier 2s. There's no way you think you're catching it.
Also, attack speed is like the worst stat on Graves. Like it's not. It doesn't scale at all. If specifically in its kit, it's hard nerfed. I mean, I think some people they do go Berserker Greaves because it makes some of his animation cancels a bit better with his E autos and stuff. But you don't build attack speed ever on Graves. It's either on your Mythic if you're going like Gale Force or Shield Bow, or sometimes Berserkers. Oh, I don't build attack speed, guys. For everybody at home, you don't need it. You blow people up with just straight AD and CDR. So and lethality, like so. Yeah, I don't know. Pioshik lost his freaking marbles.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say about Liquid. You know, we always know how I feel.
Let's go,
I actually
Kevin.
wanted to say positive speaking. Harry
Oh.
on the death state said he has like an 87% like win lane CS differential or something like that. Like he is very consistent in lane, which I see why. Like that's probably why he's on the team. They win scrims. They probably do well enough at scrims because they're winning. When you win lane, you probably win game in scrims. And the problem is, dude, if he's not on Azir, he's like 3-2. When he's on Azir, he was 0-3 this week. He was, and not just 0-3, he was the reason they lost some of those fights. I think Summit actually played really well this weekend. As overall, he had some very bad individual plays, sure, but his laning was incredible. Like he was getting ganked and he was just making massive leads by himself over and over, and his team just could not capitalize. Core had a really good game 1 on Thresh, and I think his team inted, but then games 2 and 3 when he was not playing melees, he was bad. And then all else I have to say is, yeah, that one game against, was it EG? There was like some, yeah, both teams did not want to win. That was one of the most hilarious, like 15-minute sequences of throwing back and forth ever. I had a good time. I'm really sad. I think Liquid did go with 3 this weekend, but like they have shown that they're actually, like there is potential there. If they get Harry off of Azir and like discipline themselves a bit more in the late game, this team does have the firepower. The question is, are they going to even make playoffs at the rate that they're booming? Because like,
yeah,
their mental might collapse before they actually start getting results. Like if any of these were a win, they might have been able to go 2-1, but unfortunately they didn't. So
I think they make playoffs. They have to beat Immortals and Dignitas.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm so scared.
There's no way this team is worse than Immortals and Dig. There's no way.
Yeah.
I will be genuinely depressed if I see this team
Yeah.
lose to Immortals or Dignitas right now.
Yeah.
I'll be
I don't think we live in that world yet. I don't think that's.
I think we're close to that world. I don't think we're in that world yet, but we are on the edge of
It
it.
would
Yeah.
We're
It
right
would be
there.
really. You know what? Here's the timeline. TL misses. They miss playoffs, and then for summer split they bring back double lift and win summer.
Oh, that'd be so weird.
That'd be so
That'd be
funny.
funny.
We did it
Oh
once.
my
We could do it
God.
again.
They
Yeah.
could do it again. Yeah, God, I don't know if I have any faith in this team to do something this split. Maybe next split. I do think they have easily the most entertaining games week after week. They are the most fun because they do fight all the time
Yeah.
and they do get advantages and they just toss them and then somehow they get them back and they toss them. It is really fun to watch in like a funny way. Um, and like Pioshik, I swear, like he is getting gray hairs during these games. He like okay, I just got to comment on his J4, right? I don't think Lethal Tempo was the move. I think with the new J4 changes, like Conqueror is the move now. I hate Conqueror before. I think Conqueror is now good on J4. He does this thing though in his games where he will not start a combo with EQ. He has no confidence in starting any engage with EQ. He was walking up to you and autoing, and then he'll ulti you, and then he'll EQ out and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, if you're gonna play J4, dude, you just have to EQ. You just have to EQ. So he's not doing that. That worries me. That he's not a real J4 player. If you can't just land naked EQs, you have to outplay people. Also, I think it's really funny that there was that time where Yeon just like ran into the enemy base and was just like said, "Screw it, I'm 1v3ing. Like I'm over this." And someone was like, "I'm gonna go home. You got this, right? You got this. You're gonna kill their Nexus." What is going on with their shot calling, man? Why is Yeon 1v3ing them in their base? Does anybody have any comment? Like what? Anybody? Why? Why did he do that?
No,
Anybody
that's.
know why? No.
Well, I don't know what Yeon was doing almost all weekend.
Yeah.
Why did he flash into the Baron pit?
Oh, yeah. Oh, or the Dragon Pit. He
Yeah,
did
the
like
Dragon pit.
he
Okay,
did E
sure.
Gale Force flash out to try and kill a Cassante. Cassante did boop. Oh, I
Yeah,
had to more a little
he
bit.
tickled him.
Okay, but his bot push when he dragged 3 people down and saved the game for them was actually pretty sick as a macro play.
When he ran into the base.
The bot play where they all dragged down to bot, that was a good play. They were
This
gonna
is
lose
against
the game.
EG, right?
I think it was EG. Yeah.
EG, it was Yeon. Yeah, a bunch of them died, right? Pioshik just did his J4 suicide play, and then Yeon ran into their base, and then Summit base. Like Summit went home, right?
Yep.
That's what you're talking about? You're saying that was a good play? Because I think they could have done that in other ways, but okay, maybe it was a good play.
I mean, yes, with a perfect world, you can choose better solutions. But in the moment, that wasn't a bad play. I think that was a heads-up play, trying to sacrifice KDA to pressure them to not, 4-man push down the game. So, I mean,
But I don't think you have to run into the base to do that. I think you can shove waves and prevent them but I don't know if he had to
But
run
maybe you look.
into his
But maybe you look
Nexus.
juicier when you do something weird and crazy like that. You look more.
It's like a crit away from killing. I think it was fine.
That was such a wild situation, dude.
All right. Well, let's move on because our friend Alistair has this thing called class. I don't know why he has to go to that thing, but let's go final thoughts, and I'll just lump in final thoughts with you could talk about meta, you could talk about Dignitas or Immortals if you want, or anything else, whatever you want to talk about. Last segment. Anything?
I got one thing. Since the Tigers has returned to the broadcast, double up is 0-3. So if we're counting, if we're counting score, the Tigers 3-0 versus double up right now.
Well played.
It's not looking good. The second thing I want to say is I don't know. I I guess the broadcast has been interesting. They brought QT Cinderella back. That was kind of fun. So good on that. That's cool, I guess. Yeah.
My last thing is that I think Jack really likes benching Sneaky. So
Yes.
Oh no.
Sneaky Junior is gone.
Oh,
yes,
no.
returned.
Okay.
I'm
Well.
excited for next week to see how Emenes
Yeah.
plays. or whatever.
Emenes. Emenes is
Emenes.
actually what his name is supposed to be.
Eminem,
Because the
yeah.
initials are M and S.
Okay.
Alright, Eminem. Oh,
Yeah.
also, I really want Dig to go 018. I think that'd be sick. I think that'd be really fun.
I do too.
I
Honestly.
really want
Let's
it to
go.
happen.
The first relegation of
Yes.
franchise, please?
Oh, that would be
Oh,
nuts.
18. I just hope they don't win a game. It's so sad because it's got Santorin and Jensen. I don't care anymore. I hope they lose,
I want
please.
Dignitas to leave, and I want Rick Fox to come back and make a new org and like revive something. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
If we're not getting FlyQuest 18-0, we better get Dignitas.
Yeah,
18.
what? We gotta get one.
Please.
Let's go.
18, the dream.
Nice. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. I know there was a lot of stuff to cover, but once again, thank you to my co-hosts, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair for always sharing their wise thoughts. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.